Hello and welcome to the third of our Tinto content update feedback resolutionness Tinto talks, and the third of four, of course. And yeah, let's just get right into it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to. Whatever. Let's just move in. So happy Wednesday, where we give out information on the super top secret game, etc., etc. And now we're going to have a look at changes to the diplomacy and warfare mechanics that they have done since they started doing Tinto Talks. So, diplomatic expenses. How has this changed? In some previous Tinto Talks, they added another expense to the economy to give more control to the player. The cost for this diplomatic expense is based on the tax base of your country, and the more you spend, the greater benefits your diplomatic corps gets. This is like a big change from just having Diplo slots, and then the community's like, you know what, I think capacity, I know it's in Victoria 3, and that's a bad game, and Persona non grata, blah, 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 but some of its ideas were good, so maybe, take on this diplomatic capacity situation, and, well, that was done, and now we're getting even more additions to it based on feedback, and now we're getting a way to increase the amount of capacity we have via spending on our Diplo core, so that's great. If you play France, you may have this maximized, but you may not if you play a smaller country without subjects, unless you want to be able to maintain an alliance with a bigger and stronger country. It's great. Yeah, if I don't have a need for, a ton of diplomats, I'm going to, minimize my spending on it, which is fantastic. All right, this is the biggest one. Right, I have read through this dev diary already, just pointing that out. This is the big one, right? This is, well, one of two big things in this dev diary, I think. So, antagonism. What is antagonism? In older grand strategies that they've made, they had a concept called bad boy, which impacted how badly you'd behaved, and other countries would treat you more harshly according to it. This evolved into the aggressive expansion systems that they used in EU4 and Imperator, which had a direct impact on opinions that allowed coalitions to be formed. While these were useful systems, they're all a bit limited. As global variable in your country, it was a bit too broad, and it merely as merely opinion impacts, it was rather hidden and hard to get overviews. In Project Caesar, they've developed a new system called biases, which has static impacts and temporary values that change over time, like opinions work in most of their games. We've had this for opinions and trust, and when they're not happy with aggressive expansion, and neither is the community, apparently, I'll get to that, they've decided to scrap aggressive expansion and instead make a new bias, which they call antagonism. Antagonism indicates how other countries are likely to view us. If they feel a lot of antagonism towards us, countries that consider us as relevant to their interests will be less inclined to engage in diplomacy and may act against our interests. Antagonism is caused by basic differences between a country's societal values, government type, religion, culture, and language. And actions can cause antagonism bombs. Okay, this here is what I think a lot of people have missed so far. In a location that affects the countries near to it to varying degrees depending on how much they care about that location and about the antagonistic country. Antagonism bomb effects that generally dissipate with time. Antagonism also affects a country's opinion of you. Okay, what I'm understanding from this is aggressive expansion has some extra shit attached to it. So we have here the antagonism, foreign culture group, foreign language family, different religious group, same gov type, different societal values. We have this as our baseline, and then aggressive expansion is something that gets added to this. So we have, a minus 12.01, and then your actions, like they said here, and actions can cause an antagonism bomb, is just going to be something that applies on top of this again. I honestly don't really see much of a difference between this and aggressive expansion, save for the fact that it adds these as very visible things to the player. Because, bear in mind, aggressive expansion in EU4, you got more aggressive expansion if you were attacking a place, if you conquered, as the Ottomans, if you conquered the city of Venice, which is Catholic and Italian. All Catholic countries would have more aggressive expansion with you than, say, the Mamluks. They don't give a fuck. But the Italians, say Milan, would care even more because it's also the same culture group. I kind of feel like this is just kind of the same thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe, there needs to be some kind of, this is specifically how it's different. Because I kind of don't see it. And also, what I will point out is, and neither were you, there were some loud voices that didn't like aggressive expansion. But those loud voices were not, they weren't all that. Obviously, aggressive expansion got kind of ridiculous at certain points. For example, I streamed earlier today and was essentially in a permanent coalition of the majority of the continent I was in, with aggressive expansion down at like minus 360. So that kind of situation probably could do with a little bit of a look, but at the same time, I was like 4 times the dev of, second rank great power. Like, they should be permanently, wary of my country in that case. So I feel like aggressive expansion, it just kind of worked. It just kind of worked. Of course, a country needs to have a certain amount of antagonism against you before they can join a coalition. Like minus 50? Like, minus 50 AE, they can join a coalition. Like, it's the same. It's the same. It's the same. I don't know. It's the same. The overall effect of this is that you can get away with fewer antagonism bomb effects against countries that have a baseline of antagonism for you before they start thinking about forming coalitions against you, and countries that are more similar to you will probably allow a bit more to slide. Basically, all I'm seeing here is if my values are so radically different that you as a country are able to join that coalition, like say it's minus 50. Say all of these add up to minus 50 and they're joining a coalition, even without one of these antagonism bombs, this gain of aggressive expansion. That's like the only difference I can see. That AE, aggressive expansion, now has a baseline of these things, instead of being a modifier on how much aggressive expansion you gained. But I think the overall effect of the system, like how you play and how the game reacts to the way you play, I kind of feel like it's the same. And I kind of feel like that's a good thing. It really is. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Yeah. So Ottomans always having a base antagonism towards Byzantium, yep, makes sense. So, independence movements. Trying to become independent as a subject is usually a tough life. In some previous GSGs, you could ask another country to support your independence if you had the right DLC, and they could help you in a war. To make this better, they took inspiration from Crusader Kings, where subjects usually band together to fight for independence. That's something that also can happen in EU4 as well. As they already have the International Organization Code, they've made a new type of it called independence movements. So I think this is just a long-winded way of saying independence movements is a new type of international organization. Any subject with a loyalty below 50 can start such a movement, and any subject can join it. Hopefully it's any subject that also has the loyalty below 50. Otherwise, one subject gets their loyalty down, and then chain reaction, everyone else joins. Other countries can be invited as well, and the goal of the war is to get independence for all subjects. Cool. So here we have the Flemish independence movement. Time to shake off the shackles of our overlords and fight for freedom. Independence movements can begin at any time, but will be more likely if a subject is dissatisfied with the life under their overlord for some reason, and the movement can quickly gain supporters if they don't like you. So we have civil war surrenders. This is a fun one. It's a funny one. So sometimes you're in a civil war, and, you're about to lose. And it's just a matter of time. So they've added in an action to surrender in a civil war when the other side is more than twice the size of the other. Okay, fair enough. And as some of you pointed out, hi, it is me. I am called some of you. Losing a civil war as soon as possible to avoid it may or may not be an exploit. So currently there are some penalties to jumping to the new country. So if you jump to the new country, you lose a bunch of stability, prestige, legitimacy. I don't know if this is enough to stop me thinking that the best way to play as Scotland is to start as Balliol. Unironically, I still think that is a less painful way of starting a game of Scotland than this. It's a more painful way, right, than this. This seems like the better option still. It doesn't seem like a good option. It seems like a real bad option. But, I like that they've added this. I unironically think this is a great idea that they've added this. I don't know if it's going to stop people from playing Scotland by starting as Balliol, though. I really don't. It depends on how painful it is to fight the Civil War as Scotland, really. That's kind of the determining factor here for me. Naval combat. During testing, we discovered that with all types of ships having the same frontage, it made it so that you wanted to stack almost purely the biggest ships, and the rest were not useful. Hello, EU4 combat system, naval combat system. I mean, that's the case in EU4, right? It's not, because they're all having the same frontage. Let's call that combat width, engagement width for navies. Stacked almost purely the biggest ships. That happens regardless. The rest were not useful, so instead they now have different frontages, and the categories have different roles. So here we're basically going back to an EU4 situation. This is essentially naval combat now is the same as EU4. Unless this is radically different. Like, what are the categories? Like, what are the roles? Sorry. Heavy ships having a frontage of 3. Heavy ships in EU4 had a frontage of, or I'm going to use frontage for both, but it's engagement width. Heavy ships were engagement width 3 in EU4. Combat speed of 0.5. Okay. Galleys get 0.5 frontage, so you can have 6 galleys. You can have 4 galleys to 2 heavy ships, but the combat speed is 1. So they're slightly faster as well. Light ships get higher initiative and combat speed and have a frontage of 1. I still feel like, I don't know, right? We don't know for sure because we haven't played the game yet, so we don't know how it's going to feel when playing. I have a feeling that we are going to probably end up in a similar situation to EU4, where we're just going to be spamming heavy ships for combat situations, or if we're playing against the AI, having a small combat fleet, and then the majority of our ships are actually going to just be lights. That could be the case. I don't know. But it's really hard to say without getting our hands on it first. New objectives. When they talked about the military objectives, there was a request to add automated rebel suppression, and this was something that we definitely added in. Good. I mean, this was something that Johan basically said, yeah, we're planning it. That is coming. It's just I didn't mention it because it's not in the game yet, because they're only talking about things that are already in the game, which is honestly a really good way to do things. So they've also added hunt navies that works the same like hunt armies. Okay, fair enough. That was also in EU4. It was, I guess, kind of expected. They try to engage and destroy enemy navies when spotted in the designated areas. Yep, that we've already seen that in previous Paradox titles. They're also looking to add a few more objectives like defending the coasts or focus sieges. I like the idea of that. And they'll tell us when more are implemented. Definitely want to see focus sieges basically give me as the player the map and let me designate, this kind of area, draw a box around the area that I want them to focus on, and it's like, go and siege all of the forts in this area. That would be kind of nice, instead of, or all of the forts or the provincial capitals. Ignore the things that aren't provincial capitals because you don't need to siege those. That would be really nice. So yeah, more focused objectives would be cool. Logistics improvements. This is the second of the big ticket things that have been changed. Like a really, really big thing. While we're very happy with having a logistics system in the game, as were the vast majority of the Tinto Talks enjoying Chads out there, and where food mattered, it was a little bit limited that you could only trace supply 2 locations away at most. So they've added a concept called logistics distance, and now every single army traces a path back to the closest valid supply source. The length that can be traced can be extended through advances in several of the later ages. What the fuck? How? People have been asking for a logistics system, and it's always been a case of, oh no, it's far too complicated. Oh no, it can't be done because of this, that reason. Nope, it's just gonna get done now. We just have one. We have a proper logistics system. A valid supply source is a supply depot, potentially, a port or sea zone with a navy carrying food. Oh my gosh. Having a navy along the coast will supply your armies as That's what we thought we were getting in Imperator, and it just never materialized. And now that's just going to be in EU5, and I am beyond elated about that. So, yeah, supply paths only be traced through friendly controlled territory, but not through any location that belongs to the zone of control of a hostile fort, which makes sense because it's not going to be that makes sense, right? Because if you are not having if you have your path here, we've got a map that's handy. If you have a fort here, say in I can't pronounce that, but Kizajai, whatever, and it's going through Lipetsk, right? The people of that fort are going to, harry and harass that supply train. However, even if you have an army here, that fort is still going to be something that's going to stop you. Also, we're getting a little bit of an idea about some of the various things on the map, which is kind of nice. I actually kind of like this UI element thing. It's kind of cool. It's kind of nice. So yeah, tracing your supplies back to your own territory is actually so fucking fantastic. I apologize for swearing. I probably shouldn't do that in these videos, but whatever. We'll deal with it. So yes, not through any location that belongs to the zone of control of a hostile fort. They also made it so that an army can only carry a single month's supply of food with them, except for the auxiliary units, which can carry many months for several regiments each. This means that even if you can march deep into unprotected territory or have the ability to ignore the zone of control of forts, I really still dislike that that's a thing that you can do. This does make it better, though. You need to get a supply path to the source you can get food from. Of course, you can always see the path your armies trace when you have selected an army, as a thin green arrow goes from the supply source to the army. Love this. Just absolutely love this. I want to know, though, can a supply depot, whatever, can a supply depot supply a supply depot? Can I build a supply depot in Lipsk? Or say I finish sieging Bahuti, I don't know. Say I finish sieging Bahuti and then I move on, right? Can I build a supply hub here? The food will go from Gonads to Bahuti and then off to the next place again. Like, if I can build myself a supply chain with supply depots, oh boy, that would just be peak. Absolutely peak. I would love that. Here he walked past the Lithuanian armies and he removed the Fog of War cheat code, console commands, as they would have been hidden from me otherwise. I love that. Absolutely love that. He's in the forest, so you can't see him because he's hiding in the forest. I love that so much. And tracing supplies from gonads, or goriads, I get. That's goriads? Goniads, maybe? I don't know. Goriads or Gonad, I don't know. And they will easily be able to cut my supplies by moving into Lipsk. This is the paper map mode where everything is icons on the map. Yeah, so if you move this army here, that's going to cut the supply chain. And if you don't have, I apologize, there we go. If you don't have, auxiliary units, this army will quickly starve to death. Speaking of starving to death, monthly attrition losses. One thing that was requested by you guys was the ability to see how much attrition a unit had taken recently, so they added some history to it, so you can see how many died in the last year. That's cool. So, he's losing about 300 and something per month. It would be nice if the total here, so, what that be, 700 and whatever, if that was just up here too. Right? In the past year, a total of this has been lost. Cool, I'd love that. This is just nice UI niceness, I guess. Recruiting admirals and generals. Another worry that was pointed out by the community was the potential lack of generals or admirals for your units. So we added 2 new actions where you can recruit either a general or an admiral for your country for gold. The price is based on the economy of your country, but the price is reduced by the military ability of the ruler. Okay, that's fair enough. I do hope that late game we're not going to be spending, several thousands on a general, because there needs to be some kind of cap here, I think. The abilities of the new commander depend on the current army or navy tradition, which is reduced a bit by recruiting a new commander. Also a very interesting idea. Recruiting a general, lowering army tradition, is kind of... I don't know about... I don't know how to feel about that. It does make me not want to spam out generals until I get a good one, for sure. Because your general quality is based on your army tradition. And recruiting one lowers it. So, you know, the best potential general you will have is the very first one. So, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. But either way, next week they're going to go through the mixed collection of all the other major changes they've done. And I am beyond excited and hyped for that. I'm super looking forward to it. But that is all I have time for today. I like what I'm seeing, and I hope you are too. I especially like the changes to here with the not aggressive expansion, Civil War stuff, and I absolutely adore the logistics system. This looks amazing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.